There's a disturbing trend on the highways and byways of Ontario. It appears the war against drinking and driving has hit a plateau.
A new poll by the Traffic Injury Research Foundation reveals that progress in reducing Canada's drinking and driving problem has halted. The percentage of Canadians who drove over the legal limit climbed to 8.2%. That's up from 5.6% in 2004. And the finger of blame is being pointed directly at repeat offenders. In fact, repeat drinking drivers were responsible for 6.6 million drunk driving trips in Canada last year. That adds up to about 90% of all drunk driving activity.
Now, clearly this group isn't getting the message. OPP Sergeant Cam Woolley joins us now by telephone. Standing by in Ottawa is Ward Van Laar, a research associate for the Traffic Injury Research Foundation. In Toronto, David Matheson, a former police officer and president of the ex-copper paralegal group that specializes in contesting driving-related criminal charges. Ward, let's begin with you. Has your research come up with a profile of drinking drivers?
Yes, we looked into a profile of the general drinking driver, and typically it's a male who has a history of having had traffic tickets, excluding parking tickets, and who typically doesn't seem to be all that concerned about road safety in general.
Cam, you have been sounding the alarm for years now. Do you think that the justice system is failing to deal with the problem of drinking and driving?
Well, I certainly think we could be doing better, and it's very frustrating when we're apprehending these fellows over and over again. I've personally arrested people that have been under multiple suspensions where most of the viewers would be upset if they even got a ticket. There are some people out there that don't even care if they're under suspension, and frankly, we're not safe from them unless they're incarcerated.
What happens if you stop a vehicle and the driver's license is under suspension?
Well, the driver's arrested for driving while prohibited. There's a 90-day impoundment on the vehicle. There are some consequences, but some of these folks just keep going through the revolving door of the justice system, and we see them over and over again. We've had some people recently in under lifetime bans. One fellow nearly ran over one of our officers, and he was on his way to jail to serve his weekend sentence. He was a repeat offender. So there's some of these people, certainly the system is not dealing well with it, and I think too often our society thinks of crimes that are committed with a motor vehicle to be less than when other weapons like firearms are used, but a motor vehicle is just as deadly as any other weapon, in fact, more so.
Okay, let's bring David Matheson into the conversation. David, you're a former police officer, you're a good paralegal. Is it really easy for lawyers or for paralegals such as yourself to get people off a drunk driving charge?
Well, I think we're actually having two conversations here. The first one, to answer your most immediate question, no, there's no such thing as easy or difficult in the defense of anybody on any offense. The bottom line is, if there was no mistake made anywhere from the time he's arrested to the time that the gavel comes down, then we would lose every single time. There has to be some sort of flaw in the process before we have a hope of winning. Now, the other part that we have to address here is we're talking about repeat offenders, and you can't be a repeat offender until you've been convicted once. So, in my view, there's nothing really wrong with the system. The penalty schedule is just not being enforced. And if we have the same profile of person re-offending, then we're back into the loop of there ain't no cure for stupid. And if that's the case, then we're kind of, forgive the expression, we're urinating on a forest fire. What we should be doing is eliminating the possibility of that person re-offending, or anybody. And the only way to do that is the only thing that this province has ever actually done, which is the ignition interlock system. And if in fact it was such that if the global mindset was such that every single car sold to every person had such a device in it or something similar, that it wouldn't even start unless you could provide a suitable breath sample, then the problem would be cured.
Cam, do you agree with that assessment?
Well, I certainly can't disagree, because what's happening now with the ignition interlocks situation, the real bandits just go grab another car that doesn't have that. We catch the drunk drivers that are, beyond the ones that are in lifetime ban, that always find a vehicle somewhere to drive, and unfortunately that continues to be the problem.
Well, let's deal with two issues: a first-time drunk driver and a repeat offender. should we have zero tolerance to prevent anybody from driving? You know, I mean, most people, I think most Canadians are responsible. If they knew that it was zero tolerance, they might think twice about even having a glass of wine, let alone a second glass of wine.
Well, I think we have to, our society sort of has that forgiving view of any offense committed with a motor vehicle, and I find in court the lawyers are always trying to minimize it. The client's a nice guy, he doesn't have a criminal record, he's just a nice, good all-around person, and but it's more of the repeat offenders we're talking about here, and I think Mr. Matheson hit it on the head. You know, they keep coming back. So there are some people make a mistake once, but it's a deadly mistake, and I think we have to change our view of it. And I'd like to see actually no alcohol allowed at all. It seems to me that the legal limit is about where people lose their judgment, and we see that where most of the people we arrest, whether they're first timer or not, they usually think they're okay to drive.
Okay, hang on one sec there, Ward. I want to ask Ward a question about Canadians. How do Canadians feel, or what measures do Canadians support, Ward, in the battle against drunk drivers?
Well, we see that the majority of Canadians are in favor of measures such as the ignition interlock device, vehicle impoundment, coordination tests along the road when people actually, when they're refusing a breath sample, a breath test. So there's a lot of support, over 80% actually of Canadians, for measures like that. What
about dangerous offender status? I believe that has been applied once. Should we see all repeat offenders perhaps lose their freedom to absolutely lock them up? If they can't be trusted to stay off the roads when they're impaired, then maybe they should be thrown in jail with the key thrown away.
Well, there already is an automatic custodial period.
Well, I think one of the things that came out of our research as well is that apparently there's a clear lack of understanding. Drink drivers, repeat drink drivers especially, do not seem to appreciate that drinking alcohol actually increases your risks for an accident, for a collision, which tells us, and this is something that you can see coming from other research as well, this tells us that beyond sanctioning, we also need to treat those people for their alcohol problem, which is at the source of their behavior.
Right. Okay, David, last word to you. We've got about 30 seconds.
Again, we have to steer away from punishing those people who really have committed an error, and just focus on the repeat offenders.
Hey, that's where you're making the mistake, though, isn't it, guys? Isn't that what we're saying? Anybody that drinks and drives is making a serious mistake. They're just lucky they haven't killed anybody.
No, I understand that, but please don't forget that there are two separate offenses. There is impaired driving, and there is driving with an excess blood alcohol concentration, and they're vastly different. And we have two of them for a very good reason. And when you have a repeat offender, then there's a declaration that the existing standards are insufficient, notwithstanding the fact that there is an automatic custodial period attached to a second conviction.
Right. Look, gentlemen, I wish we had more time. This is so important to talk about, especially at this time of year. I'm in favor of no alcohol at all. I really think the idea of blowing into a breathalyzer before you can even start the car is a fabulous idea, one that can't be implemented that quickly, but
absolutely,
hopefully the wave of the future. Sergeant Cam Woolley, thank you so much. David Matheson and Ward Van Laar. Appreciate it, gentlemen. Have a Merry Christmas and a safe holiday.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you too.